Away from the Citadel podcast, hosted by Charlie Fawcett and Luke Helliwell.
Hello and welcome to Away from the Citadel, the Farsley Celtic podcast. And once again, I'm joined by Charlie. How are you doing today, Charlie?
I'm all right, Luke.
And we're also joined by a special guest, Josh. How are you doing today, mate?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all good, thank you.
Good.
Friday night, fans forum at Farsley Celtic. We all attended. We're just going to touch up on that, give some information for those that couldn't make it. First of all, how did you find the event on a whole, Charlie?
I thought it was very interesting. I think it's a good sign that the board are trying to be a lot more open than Barthorpe was. Like, obviously, they don't have all the answers because it's such a complicated situation, but I think it was good to get the community back in touch with the club and have the fans back at the ground for the first time in a while.
And Josh, you want anything to add to that?
I think what the board were putting out were promising, but you can tell from when being there and seeing what the fans were reacting like. The fans didn't trust them, and I think the fans now lack that trust because of Barthorpe and how he treated their club.
Yeah, first and foremost, it was all about transparency. It were about making sure that all the bridges weren't burnt and that everyone were back on a level. But one of the main talking points, Barthorpe has stepped away from running of the football club, but he still has a very big say in the club and still owns the ground. Could that be a problem? We'll go to Josh first. Could that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people expressed their concern with the fact that he still owns the ground. So, I mean, there were numerous fans out there near enough shouting, saying he still owns it, he's still a majority owner. They can't really do anything almost without his permission in terms of affecting the ground. And like you say, the ground is the key source right now, which is the main problem that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, Charlie, anything to add on to that?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting situation with Barthorpe because everybody associated with the club was suspicious by the fact that there was never actually a statement that said in black and white, Paul Barthorpe is no longer associated with Farsley. So I think that's the query that most people came into the meeting with, is just why is he still involved in the club? And that's most of the fans' concerns because the club can't move forward until he sells, unfortunately.
Well, it is a complicated scenario in it for the board, and their hands are tied really. And John Wickham, part of the board, did say that he made an offer to Paul Barthorpe, which was turned down. But you do believe that for Farsley to progress, they need that change of ownership. They are working on, but they need that change to happen as soon as possible, don't they?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's plain and simply, it can't progress because I fully believe that the current board have got the club at heart and all they want is the positivity at Farsley, but they don't have the money behind them. There needs to be investors that can start to put things into place, but unfortunately, until Paul sells, this is where we are.
Yeah, so I'm just going to touch up on the GoFundMe that the club set up. 150 grand was the total that they wanted to raise.
I think it was 25 grand the total for the
25
yeah,
grand.
of course, yeah, that was
Yeah, 150
sorry,
grand.
it says 150 here. That's for that. We'll move on to that later. Yeah, it was 25 grand. Yeah, but day-to-day running of the football club is going to cost a lot of money, and the club have said that they don't really know how much debt they're in, but he's going to have to cover them costs, isn't it, Josh?
Well, the main directors has expressed saying that they were coming out almost every other day since the but the switch of control happened, that there were debts coming out with them that they didn't even realise that they were having to deal with. So, and as well, that point they were stressing was that they were having to pay it out of their own pocket, which I think was obviously a massive concern for them. And a lot of them were at the same time were just like, we're in a really difficult financial situation, and that's why they had put out the GoFundMe basically, and they tried to like almost partner it with, you give us this much, we'll give you this in return, and it were their way of doing it. But I think obviously it didn't reach what they wanted to reach, but obviously they're still trying, and it's the early days in the switch over.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's still only 12, 13 days that they've had the club in control, so there's obviously a lot to do, and it'll be step by step. We're going to move on to the pitch. First and foremost, we found out that Paul Barthorpe, said that he had the pitch ready, in place, the manufacture of it. But that wasn't to be the case, right, Charlie?
Yeah, this was quite an interesting talking point that came out of the meeting, that essentially the current controllers of the club were told that Paul Barthorpe had a pitch ready to go, which obviously he didn't have. And it's just things like this that make you think, did Paul Barthorpe have the club at heart? I'm not entirely convinced. And I think that is the main reason why it's such a good thing to have different people in charge of the club that clearly seem like they've got Farsley Celtic at heart and they're taking it in the right direction.
Yeah, and obviously, Josh, they're approaching the deadline. As it was said, a quote that you can't grow a pitch in March, unless you get 150 grand. That what I saw before. But will they be able to get that paperwork sorted in time? Will they be able to, all them moving parts come together for them to sort it out and be able to play at the Citadel at the beginning of next season?
I would hope so. As I say, a fan of the club, I would hope that they'd be able to get the pitch back in working order. But I believe there's some sort of lease held onto the pitch which is stopping them to get it working. If paperwork does come through and it all works out and the pitch gets done over, then all happy days. Hopefully by the end of the season or start of next season, it should be back in running order. But like I say, Barthorpe had caused this issue and didn't fulfil on it. So I feel like they're almost putting every problem back on him. So, but in the terms of getting the pitch back up and running, it's a possibility. However, with previous altercations that they've had, it's almost a chance that it's not going to happen.
Yeah, we've also got to look at the repercussions that it's had on the women's, the deafs, and the juniors team. Bit of uncertainty in the air, Charlie. Obviously, we're a member of the junior team coaching staff who were there, and they just need a bit of transparency, don't they? But which they can't have at the minute, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, there was a coach there that was associated with the junior team, and he got his concerns across. If the first team don't have a pitch, then what's the destination for those teams? But John Wickham was very quick to say, with his son on that junior team, he's very much in the camp of making sure he can get that up and running as quickly as possible. And he made sure to mention the deaf and the women's teams because, well, Farsley Celtic is more than just a men's team. It's a club and it's a staple for the community. So if they can include everybody as quick as possible, then things are only looking up.
There were a young man as well to our right while we were there. He made a good point that things started going downhill when things were changed at the club, the crest, the name of the ground, the colours of the club. That you would think the board need to restore that back to how it was, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you were a supporter of the club, we've got Josh here who is, and I'm assuming he feels the same way. If you've had your club colours stripped by somebody that is now looked back on so badly by supporters and even board members at the club, you would think that you would want to bring the club colours back if you want to start the community coming back together and having more faith in the team. I mean, coming on to you, Josh, I'm assuming you would like to see the colours go back.
Yeah, definitely. One day you look at it, it's Farsley Celtic at Farsley Nest, and then 1 minute it's at the Citadel. And one of my good friends who is a season ticket holder of the club, I mean, he were absolutely distraught by the change. He just thought, I mean, why would you change everything that were meant to be the club? They stripped the colours, the badge, the ground name. It's taking what the club was and change it to something that it isn't. And like I said, it's a staple of the community. And if you change something sort of deep felt to it, it's almost a rift in the community itself.
Yeah, I just want to touch on the emotions were running high, weren't they, the other night? Josh, if in that scenario, you got to sympathise with the fans, haven't you?
Yeah, massively.
Yeah, and I do sympathise with the board as well, Charlie. Like, what the hands are tied. What is the next steps for them?
Well, yeah, because they're clearly trying to get the fans involved in these decisions and try and be more open than the previous ownership model was. But they also can't say much because of how much of a mess the club's been left in. They can say, we're hoping for this to happen, but we don't know whether it can. So as much as these meetings are great for the fans to finally get back involved in the club, it's got to be a difficult situation for the board to be in when they're trying to get across all this stuff, but the fans have got so much frustrations in them that they're letting it all out, and the board just can't answer the hard-hitting questions that they're being asked.
Yeah. Behind all of this, there is still a football team playing on the pitch. On Saturday against league leaders Chester, they didn't disgrace themselves at all, did they? Only losing by a goal to nil.
It wasn't too bad, I guess, but I think the lack of support that the fans bring them is a massive key to their reason why they're not being performing as well. You can't be a great team with a poor support. But at the same time, they're playing youth players, the under-23s. you're not going to be competing well against top of the league, really. Then you can't exactly win massive margins. But obviously they're trying their best still. And, playing an hour and a half away from where they should be playing is still an allocation of what's going to go wrong.
No, of course, yeah. It were a massive ask to get a result there. But Charlie, David Stockdale's come in with that young squad. He's got to be very proud of them, haven't they, despite the fact that they were beaten.
He's been saying a lot about the young players are putting in so much effort and just putting in great performances despite all the hardship that they're going through. And I think that's exactly right. I think his plan is starting to come into works because you've got these youth players putting in such a good performance against such a good side. Like, things are looking up finally on the pitch. Even if there's trouble still with the board, I think if the team are playing well, then at least the fans have got something to cling on to.
Yeah, I just want to touch up on that as well, Josh. The fact that experience. They mentioned as well that experienced players have had to leave because of costs.
Yeah,
and they've had to bring through the younger players. They are still in with a chance of survival in the division, but that can't be the main aim now, can it?
I think if you're gonna have to look at it from two sides, I think the benefit of, I'd say, having young players is they're eager. However, they're not going to always guarantee you results. But if I were the board in this, I wouldn't say I'd be more than happy to get relegated. But, you can't always stay up 3 seasons in a row, coming, just above the relegation spot. Getting relegated might just be the financially smart move for the club. Take that hit and, let it rebuild in a new league where the competition is not as stiff or as hard as it's been for the past 3 years now. Let them flourish in a bit of a lower league where they can develop more. Because if you're still playing the younger players and you can't bring out senior players or bring back old players, then let them play where it's not going to be as tough.
So to follow on from that, Josh, obviously you've watched Farsley many a times. What do you want to see from the team for between now and the end of the season?
Realistically, it's as you want to see if any teams want to give it them all. Just keep trying the hardest. I understand that pay is going to be something that's going to divert them away. However, even at that, you just want to see them give it their all. For youth players or even any senior players that might still be there, just to give it their all is literally the only thing you can ask for.
Charlie, just to finish off, the board, it's a fresh start. Yeah, they were here under Barthorpe, but it's a fresh start. Barthorpe stepped away from the football club. The fans have got to really trust the board. They've got to get behind them, haven't they?
Yeah, and even though a lot of bridges have been burnt between the higher ups and the supporters, I think now more than ever it's important that they just come together and unite as a community, because the club is in such a disarray. And these men that we saw speaking last night, I fully believe that their hearts are in it and they are trying their utmost to just get this club back on track. So I know the supporters have had reasons not to trust them, but I think now more than ever they just need to put that aside and come together to save the football club, really. So that is unfortunately all we've got time for. Thank you for Josh for coming on and Charlie as always. And just one final message, if you haven't donated yet to Farsley Celtic, it'd be much appreciated if you can do. It'll go a long way to help them survive. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time on Away from the Citadel.
Away from the Citadel podcast, hosted by Charlie Fawcett and Luke Helliwell.